Hello,
Welcome back.
we're back. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We're excited that you could join us today. We want to definitely dig into something that's currently happening right now
And pretty heavy.
that has been extremely heavy. That has been a conversation, I think, in our community, in our culture,
Yeah.
in a Hispanic community. So it's been something that's been very heavy, right? As most of you are already aware, we obviously have a new president, and before we say anything, I would say remember to constantly pray for your president versus criticizing your president.
Yep.
I think it's important. We all have our passionate comments about anything and everything, but it's important that we pray
Yes,
for our
always,
presidents,
Always.
and just anybody in office, whether we agree or disagree, whether we are okay or not okay with whatever it is that is being done. We have to constantly keep them in prayer and hope that they do what is best for our nation.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, God is going to ask them for account
Yes.
of what they've done,
Mm-hmm.
what is given into whatever power is given to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say that before
Yeah.
we go into this conversation, this is
Yeah.
not to bring hate on
No,
anything.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
This is not to talk down on anything or anyone in office. It's mostly just to bring a topic that has been very heavy in our hearts. Because I come from immigrant parents, and
So do I. Yeah.
my parents have been here for 36 years, but they're at the end of the day they immigrated into
Yes.
the
Yeah.
States. So yeah, should we just
Yeah.
you want to start off with the Bible verse?
Yeah. I mean, there's been so many different positions on immigration. I mean, it's all over social media. Like, what position do I take? Do I obey the law like the Bible says?
Yeah.
Or do I welcome in the foreigner like the Bible says? Like, where's the middle ground in welcoming in the foreigner, but also obeying the law? What does that even look like? And something that my pastor always says is, okay, if you're going to complain about a situation, you got to bring solutions to the situation. And it sucks because I don't think a lot of us have solutions.
Yeah.
Or we feel like, well, no matter what we do, it's not going to make a difference. Does it make a difference?
I think talking about it, maybe making people aware of what their rights are, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Maybe I do have some friends that have some lawyers that have information about how to help.
And there's a lot of rights.
Yeah, there's a lot of rights for immigration.
Yeah.
For people that are immigrants in general. Whether you agree with the rights that you have or not, whether people have or not, there are rights.
There
for
are rights.
Immigrants.
Yes.
And so I think that's important. And then also understanding the biblical perspective of all of it is important as well, which is why I think we should always bring it back to the Bible and
Always.
just kind of reference a couple of scriptures here and there, but just to kind of reference things and making sure that people understand the response of the church is important, but the response of us as individuals is important because we can't say we love God and love people if we're not loving our neighbors, and that includes any race, any color. And so I think that's important for us to constantly remember that because that's what God calls us to do. To love,
To be welcoming to our foreigners.
Yeah. And so I think that's important. I mean, I think we could elaborate a little bit. How long have your parents been here in the U.S.?
30 since, oh man, I think my dad's been here since 1980.
Yeah.
And my mom since 1992.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a while.
For a good minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad came when he was, I think he was like 15. And it was really easy to get your citizenship then. So he was able to get it pretty quickly. Met my mom, and then he brought her over. She did come over illegally, but then she was able to get papers through my dad pretty easily at that time. But then she said that a year after she got her papers, things started getting
Bad.
bad.
So I don't really remember when my parents got here. My dad said he's been here for 36 years, so it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
But my mom got here a little bit after that, and I remember I was born in 1990, and I just remember like they would always drop us off, my sister and I, at my tita and Teo's house, and they would go to the immigration offices, and I would spend all of our time. I don't even know for how many years, just for them to become residents.
Yeah.
We spent so much time at my tita and Teo's house, just so that they could go to the offices and
Oh wow.
and figure out a way. Obviously, they both came to the U.S. illegally. Their stories are too much to share on a podcast,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but I think it's important to highlight hardworking people, right? And I think
Yes.
like your dad,
Yes.
like I've met your dad, and he's the hardest working man I know.
You don't stop.
Not just that, but he takes pride in being bilingual, which is
Yes.
important,
Yes.
which is good. So how growing up, how was it for you?
You know, I didn't even know immigration was a thing. Not until we were trying to get my grandpa to come over to the US. I mean, my sister and my mom were both residents, and so constantly having to remember, okay, we have to go make sure you guys renew your residency, because if not, then
Yeah.
there's fear in that. So fear kind of started creeping in when whenever they had to renew their residency. Like, are they going to be able to renew it?
Yeah.
What if like a law passes that they won't be able to renew it? And so I feel like that's where the insecurity comes in, because my dad's a citizen now. We were all born here, all my siblings besides my oldest sister. And so, yeah, fear in getting my grandpa over here because, you know, he was sick and he needed care.
Yeah.
But will he be able to come? And so even getting him to the US took a lot of years.
Yeah.
And when we were finally able to get him over here, it was like a breather. But then, okay, what if they send him back?
Yeah.
And so we ended up having to make the decision to send him back, because it was just, there's too much fear, and getting him care over there was the best, because what's the point in fighting for him to stay when we can just accommodate him over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for us, like I remember growing up, it was like there was always a new family member that came from Mexico that was staying with us. I think the first time I ever like saw anything immigration was like really when we moved to Atlanta. One thing I want to emphasize is like immigration has been an issue for years. It's not something that Trump, decided that out of nowhere this is what's going to be talked about. It has been a conversation for years,
For
like
a long time.
for such a long
Probably
time.
since the US was
Yeah,
started,
yeah, like
honestly, yeah.
for years. And so I was 13 years old. This was 1990, so it was I don't even know what year that was, 2000 something.
2002.
2002. And we moved to Atlanta 13, 14. I don't even remember how old I was when I moved out there the first time. And I remember just like trucks just like standing right outside like mobile homes where they knew that it was predominantly Hispanic, and just like seeing all these families being taken, and all these kids just crying. And so that's where I experienced for the first time like what it was to do that, like to like see someone be taken away from their family, and just having like the conversation of like, because I feel like in California we have the privilege of like different cultures or different ethnicities being there, but in the South it's really predominantly black, white, and some Hispanics back then, because they were talking about like early 2000s. It wasn't that many. It wasn't that populated.
Yeah.
And so I remember just like going to class, and we were like one of like 2 or 3 Hispanic people there, and it was a big difference because in California, like we were like Hispanic everywhere. And so I think like just seeing that was my first like glimpse of like, man, they're like tearing people apart because of their legal status.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that they committed a crime. It was just because there was a checkpoint to see somebody's legal status, and they happen to be getting up for work or getting back from work, and they get stopped from immigration. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is for people to think that this immigration laws are happening now. It's been happening for years.
Yeah,
I
it's
can tell you
nothing
that
new.
much. It's nothing new. It's been happening for years. Unfortunately, there has never been an actual good resolution for it. I would hope and pray that this new president, obviously this president that came back into office, is able to find somewhat of a
Yes.
solution. We got to give him the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah,
but we also got to
yeah.
pray
We gotta pray.
that that it's just proper, and that as much as it does sound like it's heartbreaking to see all these families just being broken up, we have to find a solution. Like, we have to, as a nation.
Yes.
There has to be a better way of fixing this, without all these families being broken apart. I don't know what the solution is. I wouldn't be able to say.
Yeah. But
Um,
the Bible says not to be anxious
Yeah.
about anything, but to be prayerful in
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
And so I think maybe we don't have a solution. Maybe you do have a solution,
Yeah.
but it's clear. Pray.
Mm-hmm.
Pray. Solution.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about is like the misconception of like the comments that are being made, right? Like, for example, like, oh, when Mexico sends their people, they send the worst, or when they do this, they do that. And not just with Mexico, like just in general, like any country that is not the US.
Yes.
I could say, like, I remember like growing up, like, if my mom was sick, my dad would work like long hours, and if my dad was sick, my mom would like sell food
Yeah.
in the street.
Just
We
to
would.
make ends meet.
I remember I would sell tamales from my backpack, like, and I remember the lady that would pass us like in the street. I don't know what they were called, but the lady that would pass the street to us, like right at the street light, right before getting to school. She would always tell me, like, what do you have in your backpack today? And she would always try to buy all of whatever I had, just so I wouldn't walk in. Or like, shout out to Mr. Herrera,
Yeah.
one of my teachers. Like, he'd be like, what are you selling today? Or like, so all I remember growing up is like my parents hustled to make sure
Yes.
that we might not have had, because we're so many kids, we're
Yes.
7 kids, and
Oh, wow.
we might not have had the fanciest home, but there was a roof over our heads.
Yes.
It wasn't, and so I think like the misconception of like
Only the worst are
only
over
the
here.
worst are
Yeah.
over here.
No.
And I can say that for every culture. I can say that for, I have so many friends that are from so many different parts of
Yeah.
the world, and they're hard working people.
Yeah.
I have friends that are from Guatemala that are professors. I have friends that are from Honduras that are amazing social workers. I have friends that are from Mexico that are police officers here that have served in the military. So I think like yes, like I totally agree. If somebody is a criminal and they're doing things that are not correct, absolutely they should be held accountable. And they should be, even not even, I would say, don't even just deport them. Like, they should be put in some kind of jail in Mexico.
Yes.
And not just like be, okay, well, let me send you back.
Yeah.
But I think the thought of like, well, every person that's an immigrant that comes here is, if they're Middle Eastern, they must be a terrorist. And if they're Mexican, they must be a criminal.
Yeah.
And if they're this, they must be that. I think that's such a sad misconception, because I've seen the complete opposite of that as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to talk about, because if you are somebody that's watching and you have felt the weight of it, so I really am so sorry for all these people that are going through it. Like, and just to kind of hear them like just cry, or like not even know, like, am my parents gonna come home? Like, what's gonna happen? You know, the little girl that committed suicide because they were bullying her
Yeah.
because her parents were
I
immigrants.
know.
That's sad.
terrible.
That's sad that she committed suicide because of that. And like, what do you say to these kids in school? Like, how do you address it? How do you
How do you bring comfort?
like, that's why it's like, it's important for us to be in prayer. It's important for us to know our rights. I know that you guys as a church had written like,
Yeah, we did. We printed out some red cards
yeah,
for our congregation, and we ran out because everybody was taking some for their family members. There was a wave of insecurity, of doubt, of fear. I remember we were in our first week of the Daniel fast, and every day, every night we were having prayer. Friday hit. I think Trump got inaugurated on I don't even remember what day. Anyways, the day right after.
20th or something?
something like that. And then the day right after, nobody showed up to prayer, and we were like, all right, like people are afraid, so we have to act on something. And so we started talking to our people about their rights. We started getting in contact with lawyers, and knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And so if you know your rights, then I think there's hope. There's hope to fight any situation, really.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, like knowing your rights and walking confidently knowing that God's got you,
Man.
that's hard. Because I think right now, even with us, like with my family, I went back home to see my mom for the past 2 weeks. And just kind of having the conversation with them, because my mom is a resident right now, right? And so having the conversation with them where it's like, hey, when does your residency expire?
Yes.
Maybe you should consider applying already for your citizenship, because we don't know if they're going to take away the right to be
A
to
resident.
keep renewing or a resident. And just like having the conversation with them, and then also having the conversation, well, if they remove your right to become to be a citizen, a resident, do we have a place for you to stay out of Mexico? Where are you going to be at? What is it going to look like for you to, like, because they, our parents go to Mexico to vacation, right? And I think anybody that's watching and your parents go to Mexico, they go for vacation. They try to go out there for 1 or 2 months, and they go see their people, and the uncles and the aunts and the tias and the tios and the ranchos and the terrenos and all these bunch of things, right? But it's like they go out there to kind of remember and enjoy the moment. But like, let's be real, there's a lot of crime that happens also in Mexico. Which is why a lot of the people have immigrated to the U.S. It's not just that they're immigrating just to immigrate. Like, there's really a lot of work that has to be done in Mexico, which is, if you talk to any parent that is an immigrant that came from Mexico and I could only talk for, like, I guess we could only talk for the Mexican side because we're both Mexican. I wouldn't know how to talk about any other ethnicity country, because I don't know what their struggles are. I mean, I know that a lot of Salvadorians came because of the Mara and everything that was going on, but now El Salvador is one of the safest countries, so it's like shout out to El Salvador's president, because he knows what's going on. But there's other people. I think Honduras had people coming in because they were fleeing something that happened in Honduras. I'm not fully sure what happened. But they did give them like a little brace to kind of keep track of them.
Yes.
And so I heard that those people are also, they're showing up to their houses, and now they're scared because they're like, well, they know all of my information. And this is not a lie. Like, I've actually seen it happen with my own eyes. So it can't be something that someone told me. Like, I saw it. And so I think it's important. I have a friend that, he's from Honduras, and he was sharing that his family, his cousin came here when everything happened, and then now he's getting sent back. And they found him because they had all the information, and he's a hardworking guy, and he came here because he wasn't safe out there, and he's working and everything, and they showed up to his house, and they waited for him to get home from work, and they just took him. They didn't, no questions asked, they just took him. And so I think it's important, but I think it's like understanding, like, okay, where are we at as a country? What are your rights as an immigrant? If you don't know your rights, like, please look into it. We'll leave some information down in our description so that you guys can maybe contact people if you need to. I know that there's a walk that one of our friends' church is happening. It's called March for Dignity. It's happening on Saturday, May 1st at 10 a.m. They're going to do Broadway and Olympic Boulevard in downtown LA. And I think one thing I want to talk about too about these walks. Oh man.
Another can of worms.
Yeah, it's a peaceful walk, okay? And one thing that I would say is, like, why is there a need to burn the American flag? I don't understand it. I will say this again, and I will say it to the people that are watching that have probably burned a flag. Why do you feel so passionate about burning a flag? You're trying to stay in a country that is the U.S., but you feel that it is okay to burn a flag
of the country
you're fighting to stay in.
Yeah.
can I just tell you how disrespectful that is to the men and women that have fought for our freedom? Men and women that also are some Hispanic people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nuestra propia raza que peleó, que ha peleado por nuestra libertad. En los Estados Unidos no entiendo por qué tienes que hacer el acto de quemar una bandera americana. No lo entiendo. I'm never going to understand it.
No.
I'm Mexican and I'm passionate about me being Mexican. I can never find myself grabbing an American flag and burning it.
Yeah.
There's so much disrespect in that. So I think like the marches and everything that you're doing, I totally understand that. Yes. I get it. Like there's so many civil rights people that did such an amazing thing, and I totally am like, so I stand in solidarity with my people. But I just think that there's something between walking in peace and demanding respect, and then there's the other thing about looting the city and causing disrespect to a country that you're fighting so hard to be in. Yeah. And so I think that's like one of the biggest things that when I saw it, I'm like, come on, like you guys are just like, you don't even care about the actual topic in hand. And like, don't, how do I say it? Like, no le des la razón. Like, how do I say that? Like, kind of like, don't let people take for what little thing you're doing by burning the flag like that. You give people the right to talk all the smack that they're talking.
Don't feed the fire.
Yeah. Because you think that it's cool or it's okay. I saw that they like stomped over a cop car and like, what is it for what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like seriously, for what?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
And even as believers, we're supposed to be above reproach.
Yeah.
So what are we doing to really show the love of Jesus? I don't see how any of that points back to the Lord in any way. No. In any sense. And to be respectful and to love foreigners and to love one another. I mean, what's the greatest commandment? Yeah. To love the Lord your God with all your heart. And number 2, to love your neighbor with all of your heart. So just as you love yourself.
Yeah, and I think if you go out to these walks, like just consider that. Like, consider, what are you out there for? Are you out there to disrespect the country you're so passionately upset about that they're trying to remove you from? Or remove your family from? Or are you out there to really stand in the gap for our immigrant parents or our immigrant family members or uncles, aunts, friends? Like, what are you really out there for? Yeah. Think of that as you're walking. Think of that as you're marching. Think of that before you're about to go into a store and break something because you're so passionate and upset about what's going on. Think of that before you decide to get a lighter and light up an American flag. Like, we're better than that. And I think, if anything, like, just understand that none of that helps our case.
None of it.
If anything, it just makes it worse. Because we think that you think that as you're doing that, you're helping us, but it makes it seem as the comments of like, you see, they send their worst of the worst. And kind of like how they say, like, you could do one good thing and people won't remember that, but you do one bad thing and then that is what they're going to ride with. Yes. And so I think take that in consideration. We were on live a little bit ago and one of our friends was talking about, she's a dreamer. Yes. And so she's here with, what is it? DACA? DACA. Yeah. And so I think for I mean, you have friends that are in DACA, right? A lot of them. I think what is something that you see them struggling with from what Jasmine was telling us earlier?
I just see a lot of fear in a lot of the DACA students. I think people who are students get DACA, right? And just uncertainty and like, what if things change from one day to another? We were talking about it earlier, how we could be like chilling for 1 hour and then the next hour something happens and more uncertainty, more doubt. But I think it's like crucial to like address like, where is your faith? Is your faith dependent on your legal status? Is your faith dependent on you being in the US? And I think it's important to like ask yourself that question, like, where is my faith at? Does my belief in Jesus really depend on me being here? And will I still trust and believe in him if I get deported? That's strong. There's a lot of people who are like, then I guess God isn't God because he's not opening the way for me to be here. I think God is God no matter what.
Right.
And we worship God not because of what he gives to us. We worship God because of who he is, because he's good in all circumstance. So whether we get deported or our family members get deported, or whether we get residency or citizenship, or we get the opportunity to stay here or not, God is still good.
Right.
And he's worthy of being worshiped no matter what. So I would encourage you, if you're like struggling with your faith because of immigration, I would encourage you to seek the Lord and to really base your faith in him, because he's good, because he's God, because he's worthy to be worshiped. He's the creator. He's the ultimate divine being. And he's the reason we're here, and he's the reason we are wherever we are.
Right.
And so immigration does not define our faith
or his love for you.
Yes.
I think he doesn't love us any less.
No.
You're just loved because you're loved. That's it. It doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
your ethnicity, or any of that. Like your color of your skin.
Yes.
None of that. Like, it's important, obviously, but none of that is dependent on his love for us.
Yes.
And so I think that that's important. And if you are someone that's currently going through this legal stuff, or if you did get if you were one of the people that basically suffered from this, like, just know that there's people around you that are praying for you.
Yes.
And if there's people not praying for you, I'm sorry, like, you can reach out to us.
Yes.
We'll pray.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll pray. I know it's difficult to talk about it, but I think it's important for us to have this dialogue. I think it's important for the church to have this dialogue.
Yep.
I think, if anything, I would like to encourage the churches to have dialogues like this, where you're able to talk about, okay, what is the church's response to immigration? How are we addressing immigration? Like, for example, you said at Rema, they did where they, did
the red cards.
The red cards. And how is the church responding? What is the conversations that are being had for people that are immigrants? How are we kind of like assessing these people? What is it that they're learning, or what is it that they're receiving from the church?
Yes.
I'm not talking about monetary things. I'm talking about knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge, like you said earlier, knowledge is power. So what are we teaching, or how are we addressing immigration as a church? How are we addressing, because it's important.
It is. Because
at the end of the day, church exists to spread the kingdom and to get everyone and anyone to heaven, and to love people, and to present,
be a community.
Yeah, and to present the love of Christ to them. But this is also something that is happening, and literally you could walk up the street and you could see an ICE car.
You can.
And like, how are we addressing it? And I think that's important. It's an important topic to have. And even in the churches that are maybe predominantly white or predominantly black, like, it's important. Immigration happens not just for Mexicans or not just for the Hispanic community. It happens in every culture and every ethnicity. And I think it's important to address this. It's important to have these conversations so that people, one, understand that they're not on their own, but two, like, if it was to happen, what are the steps to take?
Yes.
And if you don't know the steps to take, that's totally okay. But get the information.
Yeah.
Talk to people. There's so many immigration lawyers. Whether it's how to fill out the paperwork, what is the proper appointments to make.
Yep.
If immigration ends up showing up at one of your appointments where you're at, what do you do? How do you address that? Do you know all of your rights? Do you know where do you have anyone assigned to pick up your kids in case that you get stopped by immigration? Like, this is important things. And then, like, having the conversation with the kids, because I saw so many teachers. I give props to all the teachers that said, like, you cannot come into our schools. And I give props to that. But also, I saw immigration stand outside of the school and wait for these kids to be picked up. So it's like, it's such a hard season, but it's like at the same time, like God is gonna show up. Yeah. I believe that God's gonna show up. I believe that He's in the midst of everything, and like just kind of how we were saying earlier, just pray for our president, pray for our vice president, pray for everybody that is involved in this, that we can come up with a solution of how to deal with immigration, how to deal with all of these situations, but also like we need to do our part to be respectful people of any law enforcement, but also like just respectful people in general. And one thing that I can say is like stop spreading lies of where immigration checkpoints are happening. That is so sad. Like I had one of my workers that like he didn't want to show up to work because he straight out told me like, I don't know if on my way to work
I'll get pulled over.
I'll get pulled over. And I'm like, but you're a resident. He's like, but you understand this and this and that. I'm like, but you're a resident. He's like, but that I don't think that matters anymore. They're just stopping people. And I'm like, but you're a resident. And so he was like, you don't understand me. I was like, I understand you, but I just want you to know that I'll have your back. And he's like, yeah, but what about my wife and my kids and this and this and that? And so like I had to kind of pause myself and tell him like, okay, I understand. It's totally cool. I was like, I'll pay you for the day. Take the day off. Just take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay. And then we'll just continue work next week, right? But like the fear, because there's so many lies being thrown of like, well, immigration is here, immigration is there. Like, please, like, just don't spread false information. Because it just, the fear that people are already walking in, that just like intensifies by
it does
like, oh, well, I saw immigration here, and then I saw somebody that posted like immigration's here, and then somebody else posted right after like, I'm literally standing right outside, there's no one here. But then there's so many people that were supposed to go to work that morning, or were supposed to go pick up somebody that afternoon, and then now they're walking or they're driving around in fear or not wanting to leave their home. There's people that haven't left their home since the new president came into office. And like, that's what I'm saying. Like, people are saying, well, it's because this new president. No, it's immigration has been happening
for a long time.
And we are in a country that is not our like our parents' home, like like natives. It's not we're not natives here. Well, you know, we're not native. We're not native. Our parents are not natives here. And so it's gonna happen. That conversation is always gonna happen. And so I think it's important that you
have the
and then just stop doing things to give people the right to say, well, you see, they're all the same. And honestly, like, if you feel like it's too much information or you're getting caught up in all of the stories that you hear, take a social media break.
Best thing that'll happen to you.
Because it has been crazy seeing all of the people that have kind of like either taken the route of like, yes, like I'm gonna stand in solidarity, but then also all of the people that are Hispanic that are also taking the other side of like, deport them and do this and do that. Like, it's sad. It's sad. And I don't even have words for that. Like, I don't know what to say, because everybody's kind of entitled to their own opinion. What I can say is, me as a Mexican American, I can never sit here and just see that they're splitting families and be totally okay with that. Because at some point that could also be my family. If this doesn't get, if my parents don't fix their citizenship, and if they no longer allow them to become citizens, this could in the future potentially be my parents as well. And so I think like it's sad, but then again, we do no good in being internet bullies and like talking back to each other and talking like a bunch of negative stuff to each other. There's nothing good that comes out of that. So if also like if you feel like your health or your mental health is taking such a big toll from this, take a break. Go do something for you. Go read read the Bible. Go for a walk. Go talk with some friends. Go hang out with friends. Go take a trip. Go to Modesto. I'm just like, go take a trip. Go do something like to kind of just distract yourself from not that you're avoiding what's going on, but sometimes for your own mental health being, for your sanity, for you to be able to function properly, you just need a break.
Take a step back.
Take a step back. There is no need for you to be scrolling on socials and seeing all this like families broken, all this. For a moment, just take back. I guarantee you that when you come back, it'll still be there. Just take a little step back and just say like, all right, God, like, what do you want us to, how do you want us to respond? Because at the end of the day, these are still his children.
And like I mentioned earlier, I have it literally right here on my screen. Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ.
That's good. I think there's nothing else to be said.
There's nothing else to be said. The word says it all.
She literally mic dropped. So yeah, and we wanted to invite you guys to the walk. Saturday is March for Dignity. It's a non-violent, and I repeat, non-violent, peaceful walk. Okay. It's Saturday, March 1st at 10 a.m. They'll be meeting on Broadway and Olympic in downtown LA. It's with Vida Victoria Church and Clue Justice. And we'll post it on our socials too, so you guys could see what we're talking about. But I would just encourage you, if you have the time to go. And go. We have a conference that day with Grossman, so we won't be there. But go. But what I can say is, if you're gonna go, please, it's peaceful. Don't be showing up with lighters to light up any flags. If you're gonna show up with a Mexican flag, I totally understand that, but you're in America. We're trying to fight to stay in the U.S. Just remember that as you're walking. Okay. Respect the drivers that are passing by. Don't be looting. Don't throw trash on the floor. Pick up your trash if you're gonna be walking around. Show them that we are respectful people. And one thing that I can say is, like, the immigrants are not just people that are picking fruits off the ground. We are respectful people. There's people that are police officers, that are social workers, that are
professionals,
attorneys, that are business owners, that, like, we need to show that side of our people as well. I feel bad for all these farm workers as well. Like, there's so many things that have been going on, and I know some of them haven't been showing up. There's nothing. I understand that part as well, but, like, please, what I'd say, like, out of respect to your parents that have crossed over to the U.S.
and worked so hard
that have worked so hard, please don't show up and just loot the place and just show a demeaning side to our culture. Don't do that. Make sure that you're respectful. Make sure that it is a church hosting this event. Just remember that. Represent God well. And if you are a person and you don't have to, if you're a person that doesn't deal with immigration because you don't deal with it directly in your family, I'm sure you have friends. I'm sure that there is a friend of a friend of a friend that's going through this. So, like, check in on people. Make sure to see how they're doing. It's important because it's affecting people all over the world. And all over the U.S., but also, like, all the other countries that are kind of listening in as to what's happening. So check in on your people and find someone to love on. Like, maybe that could be your challenge for the week. Find a person that is not of your same ethnicity and just go love on them. Buy them a cup of coffee.
Active service.
Or just serve kind of somebody. Remind them. Remind them that they're loved. And thank you guys for joining us today.
If you're looking for resources, we'll have a few links.
Yes, and then we'll leave the information for the walk as well. And the Know Your Rights as well.
All that stuff we'll provide it in a link.
But thank you for joining us. I'm Tave.
I'm Stephanie.
And we'll see you next time.